And this press conference actually did the work for everything.
You cannot believe
That's
that
it.
they would have allowed
Yeah.
Chiwenga to come back in and just give a press conference.
Mhm.
That just does not make sense to me.
Yeah.
They would have wanted to stop him by any means necessary.
Mhm.
And he evaded
And you
it all.
actually captured in the book the press conference.
Yeah,
that,
yeah, an incredible event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just say something about it. Sure.
Yeah, so General Chiwenga then he comes in on the Sunday, I believe on an Emirates flight,
Mhm.
and there's this team of special forces who are there to ensure that the military, the black boots are unable to arrest him. He gets in on the Monday afternoon. This is quite an incredible event in Zimbabwe history. This is what I mentioned earlier on
Mhm.
when I was in Mozambique and heard about this on Facebook and WhatsApp. General Chiwenga gives a press conference at KG6 barracks in which he lays down the law to
After
the G40
roping
faction.
in some of the generals, right?
Yes,
For
so
TV's sake.
they're all there. They were so they're around this boardroom table. I think, or well, a number of them, but
Mhm.
there ended up being, I think, about 80 senior military officers were present
Yeah.
for that, and that told you two things. It told you these guys mean business.
Yeah.
Chiwenga's just called them. 24 hours he's back, and they're all there. Okay,
Mhm.
and also they are united.
Yes.
Because he's laying down the law, he's saying things that are borderline treasonous, correct?
That's it.
Threatening the president. And if all these guys are there, you know the tables are turning. And referring back to what I said earlier, this was the logical consequence of allowing him back in the country, or letting him back in the country, is that he is going to be the problem for you. And that's why I believe what happened at the airport happened, is because there was no way they would have allowed him to just waltz back into the country and basically take over.
Yeah. So maybe finally, let's talk about the end game, right?
Yeah.
And then everything had to precipitate to the final moment.
Right. The military
But
operation.
before the final moment, there were some things that were happening. You know, G40 saying a lot of stuff about Emerson Mnangagwa as having left the country and being a border jumper,
Yeah.
you know, and then you had all these kind of things.
Well,
that
the game turns full circle, right?
Mhm.
This is the other incredible thing, is that the winners, the people who thought they were the winners, the G40 faction, now we've all seen, I actually quote verbatim the tweets that Professor Moyo was sending out when news came that Mnangagwa had escaped the country across the border. And he calls him a border jumper, he calls him treasonous, he should come back and face justice. And it was clear then that that side, the G40 side, had won, right?
Mhm.
After the Chiwenga press
They were
conference-
celebrating when you.
They were celebrating, yeah. They celebrated, yeah, and laughed at it. It was a joke. It was
Yeah.
a punchline, right?
Yeah.
And then after the Chiwenga press conference, suddenly you know that this game is not over and the tables are turning. And it took. It was the press conference was on the Monday. The Tuesday is when the military came in. And this is the other thing that is cinematic. Okay,
Yeah.
you cannot believe that. For weeks leading up to this event, it's very hot. This is November in Zimbabwe, right, in Harare.
Mhm.
It's on the high plains. It's very hot, it's humid, okay? And this military event, which took place on the
Mhm.
night of Tuesday the 15th, I believe it was, or 14th, takes place during a thunderstorm. Is a massive
Yes.
lightning and thunder are striking. As these guys, as the special forces are going to take out Jonathan Moyo,
Shooting certain.
Ignatius Chombo, Sadiq
Yeah.
Kasagwere, they're firing at them.
Yeah.
And this is like, it's almost like a portent. Like Zimbabwe, again, I think it defies reality. Is that this event would happen, the most momentous event since, I believe, 1980 independence,
Mhm.
is this momentous event is happening during a lightning and a thunderstorm. And it's the atmosphere is like it literally
And
electric.
all this is happening at
Yeah.
a certain given place in Harare.
Exactly.
Right?
This is
That's
the
rich and famous, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
Mhm.
this is what I really find surreal about Zimbabwe.
Mhm.
Okay, and why I wanted to write it in this style is that, and you would not know if you were to listen to most media about Africa and Zimbabwe, you would think the whole country was a war zone and Somalia and everyone was
Yeah.
living in a hovel. Okay, what you don't know is that northern suburbs of Harare, these particular suburbs of what we generically call Borrowdale, are some of the richest real estate in Africa.
Yes.
Mansions you would not believe. Most of them many of them owned by corrupt business people and politicians, right? You're not building these mansions on government salaries, are you?
Yeah.
And what's incredible about this, and what made the not coup, so unusual and different, was that the action took place not amongst ordinary civilians. It wasn't like in townships or on the streets. People weren't getting gunned down. It was taking place in the Hollywood Hills of Africa. And the people affected by it were the political elite, and they were being taken out by their former friends, who were also the political and military elite, who they lived amongst in big mansions with massive walls around them, driving Mercedes-Benzes. They all lived in this few square miles of the richest real estate in Zimbabwe. And it's just this surreal sort of thing to picture. Is this is taking place it was like the Beverly Hills.
That's right. So here then the coup or military intervention is then sweetened.
Yes. Yeah.
One by Shumba,
Yes.
who said people should be killed and we should rope in the
Right.
public to protest in the streets,
Right.
and
right.
that legitimized the military intervention, right?
Yes.
According to how you wrote.
Well, also the military, remember, one of the things that I mentioned that Gabriel, this is an incredible story about Gabriel, okay, is that on the night of the military operation, you mentioned earlier, he'd been meeting these senior military officers, or a brigadier general, I think there was a colonel, he's never given me their names, but he was meeting with them in the months leading up to this event, okay? And on
They
the
were always
night of the
asking,
operation, they were asking him advice,
Many
like what would
questions,
happen if, for example, there'd be a change of government, and he's a lawyer, and he said, well, you can't remove someone in a military coup because it's illegal.
Yeah. So you have to do ABC.
You have to do certain things. And he's very, I mean, I don't think that he is probably the only person who was telling them this. I mean, they must have lawyers themselves, and these guys are smart guys. General Chiwenga, these guys have put down coups in other parts of Africa.
Yes.
And they know what's legal and what's not.
That's right.
So but the incredible thing that Gabriel was involved in was he was sitting in a car in Johannesburg while this is all going down with 3 military guys, senior military guys, and he's overhearing conversations on WhatsApp and on cell phones with the military who are carrying out the ZBC, taking over the national broadcaster, and taking over the police barracks,
That's
things
right.
like that.
Yeah.
And he's telling them, whatever you do, you don't shoot people, you don't kill people, da da da. And he's frantic that this is going to go out of control.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe finally, I think we've run out of time. So in a nutshell, you know, out of this book, you also wrote that there was this August 1 shooting.
Yes.
And you feel that maybe Nangagwa made a mistake. You know, up to now, price increases, and you know, in a nutshell, can you tell us what you feel about?
So that's interesting, and I mentioned this in the epilogue. I think it's the game with no end. The military operation I call the end game, but then really it's the game with no end. Because having carried out what is ultimately the perfect coup, okay, they thought of everything. They spun it beautifully. They got people on the streets to march. There was overwhelming approval of what was happening, and people deny it now, but there was, from both political, from the MDC as well, with some justified wariness, right? But anyway, to have done that, and then to run an election campaign, this is what Mnangagwa, now the president, now is running for election. He campaigns, he invites the world's media in. These two parties are going at it now, MDC, ZANU-PF, the new ZANU-PF. And then, in front of the world's media, the military shoot protesters and people in the streets. On today, it's 2 years ago today, correct?
Yeah.
A year ago today. And this is like, it's just, to me it was like a reversion to type. But if they had good intentions, in November of 2017, they blew that up with what happened on August 6th, because it's in front of the world's media. The world is watching, and you can't shoot people in the street. And again, like, this is something that I don't know who is behind this. Like, again, this is the relationship between the current president and the generals, and So this is one of the themes in the book is that the game goes on, and this is the tragedy of
So
Zimbabwe.
the game still go on, yeah.
The game goes on.
Zimbabwe is open for business, like what Tom Ellis saying.
Yeah.
So the slogan comes from him, right?
The slogan, I think
business,
Buchungu
yeah.
actually might have coined that, and then Ellis met him and said, "Oh, I like that idea."
And that was it,
yeah, the game.
But then
no,
finally,
business.
Chonga doesn't have a post in government
No.
except being
No.
an advisor. Why?
Yeah, well, so
No.
he's a loose cannon, isn't he? And also remember, he was acting as an individual on behalf of the war veterans, ultimately.
Yeah.
But he was acting as an individual with working with Ellis, and I think this is the
So
probably
he's the only one who's not rewarded here, you know?
who's
Or
what?
maybe was not rewarded together with Gabriel.
He was originally made
Yeah.
the presidential
Advisor.
special advisor, right?
Mhm.
And then he ran in Norton, and muscled his way in when he shouldn't have been the candidate.
That's it. Yeah. And was beaten there.
Yeah, was beaten, and
Yeah.
ultimately, I think his bravado got the better of him at the time. And yeah, he was removed. But this is something that someone senior in NBC told me, is that the mistake is being that he was never. You should have been working with the senior ZANU-PF guys who were in government. He was never really in government at this point. He's very influential and powerful, but by the time the new administration is in, he's removed. Admittedly, Monica Muchangwe is Minister of Information,
That's right.
so she's still there.
And she's been working with Nangagwa since the War of Liberation.
Give
Thank you so much, Doug.
Thank you very much.